And now for more on this, we're now joined by our correspondent Guy Henderson in Munich. Hello there, Guy. Was this at all expected?
Well, yeah. So we are in Munich after several hours of very tough discussions between the International Support Group on Syria, which could have a significant bearing on some of those humanitarian operations you're talking about and some of the operations to try and stem that flow of refugees to Europe. An announcement that no one really expected, the first of which is that humanitarian aid will begin to flow into Syria. We expect almost immediately. A task group overseen by the United States and Russia will begin work in Switzerland, in Geneva, literally in the coming hours, and humanitarian aid could begin to flow to Syria as early as Saturday. Then a cessation of hostilities within 1 week was the announcement from the US Secretary of State John Kerry. Of course, it is the ongoing fighting during the attempted round of talks in Geneva earlier this year, which collapsed because the fighting was continuing. So this is seen as a very significant first step towards the implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 2254, which diplomats claim is still on track at the moment. That would be a peace deal by the middle of this year, and elections in Syria, as ambitious as that might sound, by the middle of next year. So a big step and not expected at all.
Well, Guy, the consensus now have been reached about the implementation.
Well, that is the next question, really, and that is something that none of the diplomats here tried to hide. There have, of course, been two other attempts at ceasefires in Syria over the years since this civil war broke out. The first one in 2011, brokered by the Arab League. The second one a year later in 2012, that time brokered by the UN Special Envoy at the time, Kofi Annan. Both of those collapsed barely before they'd even begun. Now, John Kerry said he was fully aware of the difficulties, but Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, had warned that, in his view, there was little other choice, given he was hearing about the plans of this Plan B, this so-called Saudi proposal to possibly even consider sending in troops to back the rebel forces. Well, he called that a slippery slope. So it does seem as though there is an attempt here to come back from the brink at a time when the conflict did appear to be worsening. But no diplomats at this meeting were under any illusion that there are still major differences and that these are very early steps, a cessation of hostilities. Still some disagreement around whether that actually means a ceasefire.
Thank you very much, Guy Henderson, reporting from Munich, where major powers are participating in the meeting in Germany, and they have agreed to implement what's being called a cessation of hostilities in Syria. And they also reached consensus on expanding delivery of humanitarian aid to the people caught in the Syrian conflict.